Well, hello, everyone. I'm Joe Perez, and I have a book. I'm not going to promote my book. That would be shameless, right? Shameless for me to promote, that's the word. For me to promote my own book at my own talk is preposterous, is terrible, lack of integrity, lack of iniquity, whatever. So I'm not going to promote it, but if you are interested, it was a number one new release on Amazon. So come see me afterwards, and they'll have Naringa told me they'll have it displayed somewhere that you guys can take a look at it. And I also have candy, so you know that's going to be good for a bunch of developers. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and jump into this thing. Hopefully I can remember everything I'm supposed to say. All right. La mattina ponio sir ponai. Yeah. Achu kadviel primete mane a salvo graja shale. Tikiose tad mano pristatimas yums bus naudingas. So, yeah, thank you. Achu. What I was trying to say, I hope I said it right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for welcoming me to your beautiful country once again. I hope you find my presentation to be helpful. So, you know what? Let's build stuff, shall we? Understanding the value of data using to make decisions is nothing new, isn't it, right? Do you remember the COVID pandemic? It wasn't that many years ago. Why, it put a huge spotlight on how health-related data and other data drives decisions for treatment, protection, prevention, and other vital concerns. It has also caused us to be more cautious in our best projects and processes, considering sanitation and better general cleanliness. These practices that we all take for granted today were not quite so well known back in the 1850s. With mountains of data accumulated since then, well, we know better now, because you see, data is supposed to be part of our everyday life as developers. To that point, Florence Nightingale, widely renowned as the founder of modern nursing, had a side to her that perhaps you might not have known. After returning to England from leading a team of volunteer nurses at military hospitals during the Crimean War in the 1850s, her radical ideas regarding sanitation practices, at least they were considered radical in those days, revolutionized the understanding of public health in the British Isles and laid the foundation for the modern profession of nursing as we know it to this day. In fact, she was credited with lowering the mortality rate at one of the military hospitals where she worked from 40% to only 2%. Here's the thing. Nightingale was also an accomplished statistician. Riding high on a wave of popularity after she returned from the Crimean War, she was determined to do everything that she could to ensure that the lessons learned would be applied to a greater degree. And what's more, she had the backing of Queen Victoria herself to make it happen. How? Through the use of data storytelling. Big deal, right? But totally unheard of back in the Victorian era. You know, there was no such thing as developers back then. None of you would have had a job. According to her experience in the Crimean War, it had taught her that far more British soldiers had perished because of disease than due to battle injuries from the enemy. Again, she had the data to back her up. She also had data showing that even during a time of peace, soldiers living in cramped, unsanitary barracks died at a quicker rate than civilians. So what'd she do? Well, together with a team of top-notch statisticians, the Royal Commission that she led published a set of reports complete with charts and graphs illustrating these facts in stark, compelling clarity and detail. Take a look at the chart on the screen behind me. Holy smokes, what an amazing chart, right? Especially when you consider that this thing was created in the 1850s without a computer. So upon seeing such clear evidence of the importance of clean hygiene, The Parliament and Queen Victoria set up a commission, a royal commission, and death rates among the soldiers began to decrease. As a result, Florence Nightingale became one of the first people to persuade the public and influence public policy through data visualization. You might say, she really brought data to life. Wow, what a nice, catchy phrase. Data to life. What does it mean? I mean, does data really have a life of its own? I suppose for some, the argument could be made that data, I don't know, maybe it exhibits some characteristics of life. Maybe. It seems to respond to its environment. It grows, it develops. It can be rather complex, but, well, you know, it's kind of a stretch to say that it reproduces, right? I mean, that's not the idea I'm trying to convey today of literal life. Okay, when I say the phrase data to life, I'm certainly not advocating whether or not data exhibits characteristics of life as we know it, Captain, okay? Well, because I was an educator and I love to make things easier for people to remember, I've created an acronym with the 4 letters spelling the word life, from which what I call the 4 life pillars of relevant data are formed. Life, the letters L, I, F, and E. They stand for legacy, integrity, fervency, and efficiency. I did this to make them easier for you to remember. I hope that helps. It's not in Lithuanian, but that's okay. It'll also make it easier if you wish to use the handouts that were distributed on your seats when you came in. You'll see that the blanks and spaces that you see on the sheet will match the underlined words and spaces that you'll see on the screens behind me. All right? I'm going to jump into this and talk about these 4 pillars. First pillar, legacy. You know, I think people have the wrong idea when it comes to legacy of data. You know, they think that it's something that's ancient or came from a mainframe or is not Y2K compliant. Do you remember that? You know, all these things can be defined in what we might say are legacy data, you know, in the conventional sense, or maybe what's thought of as being data from systems that are outdated. There's a broader definition of this term that I believe we need to bring into consideration. You know, even the conventional narrower term of legacy does not necessarily have to imply any negative connotation. While they may not have all the advanced functionality, capability, extensibility, compatibility, you know, and all the other fancy terms that you want to throw at it, there is something to be said about a more stable platform and solid framework that didn't require you to be constantly looking over your shoulder for the next ugly cyber threat rear its head. But getting back to that broader sense of the word, okay, a legacy data source. I believe there are good working definitions. It can be a file, a database, a software asset, an API, or a business application, or web service, or whatever. Anything that supplies and produces data that's already been deployed into a working production environment across an entire enterprise. And by the way, that in and of itself makes it valuable. Because you see, whether you are a decision maker or a report developer or a DBA or an end user or somewhere in between, seeing the value of data, ensuring its usefulness, tracking its life cycle, being involved in its storage, aggregation, summation, visualization, or anything else, this legacy concept should really be foremost, I believe, in my thinking, and maybe even in your thinking too. Now, with this, I think we need to ensure that our stakeholders understand the whole picture when it comes to the integration of the legacy concept with the use of newer tools. Now, as developers, you already know, like analysts do, stakeholders and others at the higher levels of the company echelons tend to adopt a more simplistic view most of the time, do they not? And of course, I'm all for summarizing the concepts, stating them at a high level so people can understand without getting too much into the weeds. You know, that strategy can sometimes backfire, especially when those very same stakeholders you're talking about are going to take those assumptions to the extreme and forget about the detail. Let's take the adoption of an AI strategy as an example, all right? I want you to look at the illustration on the screens behind me based on how AI solutions architect Andy Scherpenberg sees it. What companies often think of as an AI strategy, what it looks like, is nothing like what it really is. Now, watch as I describe these 3 blocks from left to right, maybe in a silly way, from the perspective of what stakeholders think AI looks like. Oh, sure, that is easy. Why, you start off by leveraging your data, legacy data, into a homogeneous topography. And then you bring in a solid AI strategy for data science to catalog and work out your business processes. And then you create value when you wind up improving upon everything all the way through. Oh, it's so easy. It's a piece of cake. Yeah, right. I'm sorry. I don't want to burst anybody's bubble here, but you know what? If you've been in the business for any length of time, you know good and well it's never as simple as it appears to be. Now, let's see what it really looks like, starting in the first block, okay? It may be correct that you are indeed going to leverage your legacy data into that homogeneous topography that I talked about, right? Now, look, there's so much more to it than that. For you see, you have to make selections from that legacy data, figuring out what's going to be cataloged and included. Then you have to trace everything back to its original source, right, to ensure its integrity. I'll talk more about integrity later. And then you have to synthesize it in a way that the AI and ML engines can understand it. What about that second block? Well, with AI, you got data science, right? And that layer is comprised of both data engineering and modeling. So as you're engineering the data, you have to explore it, clean it, normalize it, engineer its features, and ensure that analysis and categorization can scale up to enterprise level and beyond. Then there's the modeling side of it, okay? There you have to select the model you're going to use, right? After you've figured out, which one you assume to be the most optimal, of course. And you got to train the model. Evaluate the results, go through some fine-tuning to make sure that you're getting the results that you're expecting. But even then, you have no guarantee that it's going to work exactly right the first time around, right? So much of this is going to be an iterative process, over and over and over and over. It might just take you a couple of go-arounds for you to get it just right. Okay, moving on to the third block. Yeah, value does get created, but not until after you are able to operationalize the whole process. For you see, up to this point, it's just a prototype, a working theory, a plan, an idea that you think will work. You don't know yet whether it actually will work. And operationalizing it means that you get it to the point where it's repeatable, optimal, and transparent through another iterative process. What is that process? Registration, deployment, monitoring, and retraining of that model. Okay, even with all this, you still have to remind your stakeholders that there are always going to be constraints under which we all must operate. I don't care whether they're legal or ethical or historical or security-based. So, with this concept of legacy, it's not just about how old the data is, nor the age of the system that houses it, but how it brings value to the business. Speaking of value, there's several factors that tie into business value. What are they? Time plus energy plus perspective equals business value. Okay, Dr. Joe, how does that work? Well, I'll show you real quick. Okay, first of all, time. Okay, you look at the life cycle of the data, that is how often various bits of information are retrieved for use. And then for energy, well, you have to balance how much effort it takes to clean up sloppy data versus the effort that it would take to reinvent the wheel for something that's already working. And then for perspective, well, here you have to balance the value of diverse perspectives along with the danger of not having a single version of the truth, especially with larger organizations that tend to get caught up in this silo mentality. I'll talk a little more about that one version of the truth bit in a little bit. So all of this that we've talked about, that's what's involved in the concept of legacy. That's the L, the first of the 4 pillars of relevant data. The L in life is legacy. Second pillar, the letter I is for integrity. You know what? I place an extremely high value on personal integrity. You know, honesty, decency, the what you see is what you get mentality, right? The thing that guides a person's attitudes, behaviors, and actions, right? The things that keeps them honest and striving to do the right thing, whether anybody's watching or not, whether he or she is going to get any monetary benefit from it or not. You know, the moral fiber and character that refuses to cheat just because cheating is wrong. And it is. I believe in all that passionately. But you know what? In the context of bringing data to life, well, that's not what I'm talking about. Not your personal integrity. When I say integrity in this context, I'm talking about the integrity of data itself. Now, you may have heard this, but data is said to have integrity when considering its overall accuracy, completeness, and consistency. Remember those 3 characteristics: accuracy, completeness, and consistency. You'll see them again in just a little bit. I suppose on the side, yeah, we ought to add security, right? Safety, you know, nothing will be complete without safety and security. You know, that's a given. It should be automatic. But let's think about this for just a second, okay? When data is accurate, complete, and consistent, it's because the way that it's been collected, stored, maintained, and distributed is governed by solid principles and high standards, all right? Guess what? That's data governance, right? And when such a framework is in place, you simply cannot help but be accurate, complete, and consistent. And when you get to that point, when that happens, you will have achieved integrity in data. And you know what? That data is data that can be counted upon, data that is reliable, data that is safe from contamination. You can trust it. Why? Because it stays the same. It is integral. And yeah, of course, there are, you know, technical aspects to data integrity that come into play, right? When you think about the architectural infrastructure of, say, a database. That is things like entity integrity, domain integrity, referential integrity, right? That kind of thing. So yeah, we simply, you know, we can't just forget about those specific technical considerations, but that's a little bit beyond the scope of my intended scope today in this session. I'm looking at it from a high level perspective. So from that higher level perspective, okay, the word integrity, saginingumas, means, yeah, one piece. Look it up in a dictionary. That's the origin of the word. One piece, complete, undivided. So, saginingumas with data means that whether you get it off the boss's desk or pull it off the website or ask one of the engineers or even a developer, the answer you're going to see is the same thing, and you can count on it to be the right answer. Yeah? That's that one version of the truth I was talking about earlier. Well, at least. That's the goal anyway. And it's the attitude that I think we should have, that of protecting this aspect of our data more than anything else. Now, don't misunderstand me. You know, there will always be varying perspectives of the data, and any given data set, you know, it's often going to be subject to more than one interpretation, right? Because of those diverse perspectives. And you know, that goes back to what I said earlier about maintaining integrity in our data, which brings us to our first review of the day. I am going to give you a chance to earn some candy. All right, who can tell me what are the 3 characteristics of data integrity? And I'll tell you what, let me get my candy out here, and I'll have 3 of you tell me if you remember the 3 characteristics. Yes, sir. Oh my goodness. Well, you get 1, 2, 3. All right. 3 pieces of candy. All right, well done. Oh, and extra pieces for you who might post online on LinkedIn. Tag me, Joe Perez. No shameless plugs. I said I was going to stop doing that. All right, very good. Accuracy, completeness, and consistency. And no, I didn't give them any money to say that. All right, those are the 3 characteristics of data integrity. Shall I put this here? Okay. So with that, we've come to the end of the second pillar, right? The I in life is what? Integrity. Excellent. Third pillar. The F in life is fervency. Now, with this one, I'm not talking about the characteristics of data. I think you said that, right? There you go. Good catch. I don't think data can be said to be fervent. It's just data. It's either right or wrong. It can't be fervent or not fervent. What am I talking about? Okay, look. Up to this point, I've been more focused on legacy and integrity, right? What's in your head right now with regards to data, okay? But with fervency, guess what? I'm talking about what is in your heart, okay? Those of us who are the keepers of data, the reporters, the viewers, the deciders, the builders, the counters, the developers, the summarizers, and so on. All right, so then, well, who's going to thrive in this environment? Are we talking about people who are great logical thinkers, or for those who are flamboyant and creative and loud like me, okay? We talking about those who are governed by left brain logic or right brain ideas. There seems to be a dichotomy of a sort in this realm, for those who think that it has to be an either or situation, advocating the mindset that you must either be a left brain thinker or a right brain thinker exclusively. Those with this left brain dominance must always be more analytical, objective, and methodical, while those with the right brain thinking, dominance, whatever, must be more creative, subjective, and intuitive. Now let's think about that for just a second. Okay, I'll admit there is plenty of science that'll support the idea of each side of our brains having different tendencies, strengths, weaknesses, areas of expertise, and so on. No argument there at all. The 2 sides of our brains, yeah, they do process things differently. For instance, the left side is more detail-oriented, and it's responsible for our reasoning and logic. It learns things in an informational manner, tends to be more objective. It's more interested in serial processing, and it's more structured. By contrast, the right side of your brain is oriented more with the big picture. That's what's been called whole-oriented rather than detail-oriented. It's responsible for our creativity, our imagination. It learns in a more transformative manner and tends to be more subjective rather than objective. And rather than serial processing, it's better at parallel processing, tends to be more free-flowing than structured. Okay, all of this might lead you to believe that the 2 halves are at odds with each other, right? That it's an either-or situation. It's more of a both and than an either-or. They're at odds with each other? No. Nothing could be further from the truth. Yeah. Fairly popular notions of this left brain dominance and right brain dominance that was popular through the 1980s into the 1990s, probably close to 2000. Anyway, more recent research has shown, in neuroscience, has shown this to be a little bit exaggerated. Our halves of the brain are better suited to different things than others. Yeah, most of us have a tendency to go either one way or the other. Okay, all that's true. But the key to improving upon our thinking skills is to recognize not the differences, but the extent to which the 2 halves work together. Okay? Recent medical research in neuroscience has shown that abilities in the STEM discipline, right? Science, technology, engineering, and math, when both of the halves of the brain work together. See, you need both your reasoning and your imagination, both the logic and the intuition, both the order and the chaos. If we're to make sense of everything that developers need to accomplish in a single day when it comes to bringing data to life. All right, so in our fervency, the logic from the left side informs and directs the passion on the right side. The expression from the right gives clarity to the language on the left. The creativity on the right colors the science on the left, okay? You cannot simply put yourself exclusively into one bucket or the other. Both halves must work together. So it's not an either-or situation. Again, it is a what? Both-and situation. Now, whether you think you're a numbers person or not, understanding data and having a passion for it is all about attitude and a drive for knowing more. Paul Davies, Consumer Marketing Director at Microsoft, says it this way. I love this quote. The magic happens when left brain logic meets right brain ideas. That's when sparks can truly fly. Now, to put all this into perspective, okay, you know, it's one thing to recognize the business value of legacy data, right, the L, okay, and to be committed to upholding its integrity, the I. We were with, right? You with me? Okay, all that might be firmly planted in your thinking, in your head, as it were. But what about your heart, your fervency, your enthusiasm, your passion? Are you passionate about these values? Do they move you to the point of enthusiastic support for those who drive you to excellence? And for that matter, are you yourself driven to excellence? Let me ask it another way. Are you simply satisfied with the status quo? Or does your fervency move you to go beyond the status quo? You know, do you break out of your comfort zone, go the extra mile, and simply blow away the status quo? In one of my other keynote presentations, I asked my audiences this question. Are you a catalyst for change or an antagonist? You know what? I think we achieve fervency and excellence when we recognize that an expectation is something that should be exceeded, not just met. You can quote me on that all day long if you want, okay? Because you see, if I truly believe that I should make every effort to ensure that my data is right, oh goodness, Dr. Joe, I can't believe you said that. Oh no, you said my data, please. No. We're not supposed to personalize it. Oh yeah? Well, I'm sorry. You can throw rocks at me if you want to, but I'm going to say it all day long. Look, it might not literally be your data, granted, okay? But I do believe we need to take personal responsibility and personal accountability for the data. That's what I believe, truly. In that sense, you bet your boots I'm going to call it monodual okay? So I believe, if I truly believe that I should make every effort to ensure that monodual is right, that it has this integrity, then I should approach that with enthusiasm, with passion, with fervency. You know, if I know that my organization will be better off when decisions about resources, sales strategies, manufacturing techniques, employee benefits, professional development, business growth, cybersecurity, and a whole multitude of other factors are driven by data, well, then I should enthusiastically, passionately, and fervently make every effort within my power. You know what? Maybe even beyond my power, to make sure that the data is right. You know what? That needs to be a driving force in the heart of any developer. And you know, since the word fervency comes from the Latin word for fire or boiling, you know what? It should be the kind of stuff that boils me, the kind of stuff that fires me up to give it everything I've got. You know, the overwhelming passion that captures the attention of great people like you who have dedicated themselves to be a success in this realm. That's the third pillar, fervency. The F in life is fervency. Now we come to the fourth and final pillar. The E in life is efficiency. But before we go on to that fourth pillar, I want to have another review with you. See if more people can earn more candy and see if you can remember what those 4 pillars of life are. Who can tell me what does the L, let's start over here. What does the L stand for? Life. What'd you say? Oh, legacy, right, it's life. The L stands for life. The lights are in my eyes, so please forgive me if I can't see you. All right, somebody else. What does the I stand for? Integrity, yes ma'am. Right here on the second row, good. All right, very good. Let's try over here. What does the F stand for? Somebody on this side, what is the F? Yes ma'am. Fervency, absolutely. Yeah, everybody duck. Oh my goodness. So the first lesson in tossing, make sure you shield your eyes before you throw and then shield your face after you throw. All right, legacy, integrity, fervency. Who can tell me what the E stands for? Efficiency. Let's see, somebody back there. Raise your hand, who said that? Oh, okay, I'm gonna try this. See if I don't hit anybody. Everybody duck, and here we go. Bounced off the chair. All right, we got it. You guys are absolutely amazing. Legacy, integrity, fervency, efficiency. All right, settle down. Okay, now let's talk about efficiency, that 4th pillar, okay? Whereas the L and the I in life, that is the legacy and the integrity, comprise the head, right? And the F for fervency comprises the heart. Guess what? The E for efficiency comprises the hands. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where you put everything into practice, okay? Listen, truth should travel from your galba to your shirdis to your rancos. Yeah. See, how you act upon something with your rancos that you both learn with your galba and internalize right here in your shirdis, okay? And I believe that is best expressed by efficiency. How do you implement things? How do you carry out what you know to do? Yeah, I would like to think that I'm already pretty efficient in everything except throwing candy. But, you know, I think I should always be pushing myself to do it better today than I did it the day before, right? More success out of less effort. More result out of less work, that sort of thing. I mean, come on. Who wants to spend an hour doing this something that you could do it in 45 minutes, right? Now, please, do not take this to the extreme, okay? I am certainly not talking about fast forwarding your movies and TV shows when you play them so you can listen to them at double the speed. You end up with everything sounding like chipmunks, right? Right? Yeah, you can't listen to that. I'm not talking about that. Nor am I talking about changing the recipes for baking times and so forth. Let's see, if you have a cake that takes 40 minutes to bake at 200 Celsius, I am certainly not suggesting or advocating that you bake it at 400 Celsius for 20 minutes, so it'll only take 20 minutes. No, it doesn't work that way. You wind up with something like this, okay? Now I'm talking about procedures, processes, household tasks, business functions, even a collection of Python code in your freaking GitHub repository, right? Things that are typically comprised of multiple steps, yeah? I'm talking about constantly looking for ways to perform those steps, complete those procedures, and implement those processes in a way that's better, quicker, or less costly, or maybe some combination of the 3, yeah? You know, I should always be looking for ways to improve upon the manner in which I go about doing things. Even when I look in the mirror, I gotta improve that, okay? You know, this efficiency is definitely the practical outgrowth of already having committed myself to legacy and integrity with fervency. And you know, this efficiency, it tends to increase as analytical maturity also increases. You know, think about it, okay? At the first stage of analytical maturity, as shown in the lower left portion of the chart on the screens behind me, you start off with business intelligence. And that answers questions that you already know using data you already know. Not a whole lot of efficiency there, or, you know, competitive advantage. Why? Because everybody's doing that. But when you add a data visualization strategy, as shown in the lower right here, okay, you can start to explore questions you don't know because patterns have now become visually apparent. And when you take it a step further and add analytic discovery with big data in the upper right, well, now you're asking questions of this vast sea of previously unknown data, and not just what's been put through the rinse cycle a few times in your enterprise data warehouse, right? So where you really want to be is in this top left portion of your chart, right, in which you have gotten to the point of using predictive analytics, regardless of whatever tool or specific product that you use. It doesn't matter. But at this point, you know what? You are now in a state of efficiency. And why is that? Well, because you are finding answers to questions you don't know using what? Data you don't know. And see, that's where the magic happens, I believe. Okay, why? Because that's where you have learned to combine big picture planning with day-to-day execution. Or saying it another way, tempering the long view of strategic thinking with the practical view of tactical progress. Pretty good formula, right? The strategic blended with the tactical. And that, my friends, I believe, is efficiency in action. American author Dave Dunham once said, efficiency is intelligent laziness. Oh man, you gotta love it, right? You know, if you think about it, dumb laziness just sits around and does nothing. And you still got everything left to do. While intelligent laziness wants to get the most done ahead of time by doing the least. Okay, Dr. Joe, at what point in this bringing data to life process should we start seeing some of that efficiency that you've been talking about? Excellent question. Glad you asked it, and I won't throw you candy. Well, like I said at the very beginning, look, I think it'll be at every stage, okay? And even from the beginning. Drawing from the immense skill of chief storyteller Brent Dykes, he's brilliant. Reminds me of Dylan. The way he explains these data storytelling stages in recent articles on one of his websites called effectivedatastorytelling.com. Another shameless plug. No. Google that, look it up. You'll find some amazing things on there. The guy's brilliant, like I said. Okay, on this thing, he uses the concept of building something with a Lego kit. Huh? Yeah, that's his metaphor. Legos, I love Legos. Now check it out. You start off with data collection, all right? And that's gathering data on whatever it is that you need to measure and understand the way it behaves and performs, as illustrated by this seemingly disorganized pile of Legos in the first picture behind me here, okay? Then you go on to data preparation. And that's when you start cleaning, arranging, and combining the data, getting it ready for analysis. And that's illustrated by the somewhat more organized pile of Legos. At least they're separated into colors, sort of, kind of, in the second picture. All right. Next is the data visualization stage. And here you visualize the data so that it can be seen clearly, and that potential insights will make themselves more obvious. As you see in this picture, it's illustrated by a much more organized pile of Legos here, arranged not only according to color, but also according to the type of shape they are, how they're used, and so on. Fourth stage, data analysis. And here's where you focus your attention on things that might be of interest to your stakeholders. And your audience as well, directing your efforts with all that in mind. Gee, sounds like something a good developer might do. Exactly. And that's illustrated in this fourth picture behind me. The Legos that have been categorized have now been pre-assembled into various sections. Not quite a completed project just yet, but you see the results of more analysis here. And then finally, you get to the data storytelling stage, what you've been waiting for. This is where you put your visualizations together with narratives and you make it into a story, okay? That's what binds all the loose parts together into the whole and makes them resonate with your audience, the narrative behind the data, and might even provide inspiration so they can make decisions or make changes because of it, much like the finished product you see with the Legos. The blending of both art and science in a pretty neat package, if you like Legos. Okay. So yeah, when I say that I want to bring data to life and life to data in the data storytelling, all right, I need to do it with these 4 life pillars of relevant data that I've been talking to you about this afternoon. And what are those 4 pillars? Say them with me, please, if you remember. The first one starts with an L. What is it? Legacy, right. The second one starts with an I. What is it? Integrity. The third one starts with an F. Fervency, that's right. And the fourth one starts with an E, and it's what? Efficiency. Achoo. Yeah. You're an amazing crowd. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, what's the point? Laiskite manyu pokrauste poniosi ponai. I don't think I said that right, but I'm saying, let me ask you something. Are you striving to bring data to life? Well, here's a challenge that'll put things into perspective. Think about this. Florence Nightingale, you remember her from the introduction? Yeah? Wow, she certainly brought data to life in Great Britain and beyond more than 160 years ago. Her efforts using data storytelling moved the British Parliament to take actions that saved the lives of countless soldiers in the years to follow. I believe that she used all 4 of these life pillars of relevant data. How so? Well, let's review. First of all, the L, legacy. How did she do that? She used the data that was already available to her, about the unsanitary conditions of the soldier's environment. Secondly, integrity. Oh, good grief. Her analysis had to have been characterized by what? Accuracy, completeness, and consistency. Third, fervency. You better believe it. From the very beginning, it was obvious that Nightingale's heart was 120% into it. Her dedication proved it. And fourthly, as for efficiency, oh my goodness, she managed to get the entire British Parliament to go along with her plan. Holy cow, for the Victorian era, or any other era for that matter, convincing a bunch of legislators, that is no small task, even for a developer. And to top it all off, she managed to do all that without Power BI, without Excel, without a modern plotter or printer, no Tableau, no Click, no other kind of software, computer, or internet. Man, she didn't have VisiCalc or even DOS. So, what's our excuse? Poniosi ponai. We have more tools in our disposal today than at any other time at the history of mankind. Good grief, man. You can hold a computer in the palm of your hand that has more processing power in it than what was used to put a man on the moon. And by the way, it takes pictures, surfs the web, and even makes phone calls too. Hello, right? So yeah, bringing data to life should be second nature to developers. Why? Well, because it is the only way that we can help our stakeholders to make sense of, draw insights from, and make decisions with this amazing commodity we call data. Now, it might not have a life of its own, but with legacy, integrity, fervency, and efficiency, maybe, just maybe, we can certainly bring it to life. I'm Joe Perez, and I want to bring data to life. So, I appreciate your time, or as you, my dear friends, would say, labai achu ush yushula, I think. So, thank you very much.